Unstable is a father-son workplace comedy streaming on Netflix. The 8-episode series dropped Thursday, March 30th, and is about an eccentric billionaire and head of a successful biotech company who loses his wife, starts acting erratically, which ultimately leads him to reconnecting with his son. The small cast is led by a real-life father-son duo, Rob Lowe and Jown Owen Lowe, and was developed by creator of the Santa Clarita Diet and Better Off Ted. On this podcast, we like to discuss the recent installments of a different series every show. Today, that's the 25-minute pilot. Happy April Fool's Day. Welcome to today's episode. So it's pretty common for us to go through the episode that we watched and then talk about it, give our pros and cons, and then finally give our rating and see the reviews. But I want to start off with the reviews this time as part of a little game. I've got 4 reviews here, and I don't want you to give away like your ultimate opinion on the show, unless you want to, but I want you to tell me if you agree with them enough where you think they're real. So it's like I have 4 different: The Hollywood Reporter, Rolling Stone, The Guardian, Decider. Mm-hmm. And you have to decide whether or not what I'm saying is actually true about what they said. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. So Hollywood Reporter said this about Unstable. Unstable is very, very funny, thanks to a crackling combination of sharp writing, lovably eccentric characters, and snappy comedic timing. Is that what they said?
I will go with false.
Nope, that's true.
That's true? Okay.
Rolling Stone said, Unstable is a comedic tour de force. The show's exploration of the tech industry is both insightful and hilarious, and the father-son dynamic between Rob and Jown Owen Lowe is a delight.
I will go with false for that one.
You got it. Okay, so you're 1 for 1 right now. The Guardian gave it 2 stars. The actor stars alongside his son in a nauseatingly schmaltzy, second-tier comedy. It's utterly unfunny, but at least its lead is charming as ever.
I'll give that true.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Guardian stuck with its, or it went back, because for a while we were
For
getting
a while,
like 4
it was getting
stars.
4 stars, yeah.
Yeah. And then Decider said, stream it. Even without Rob and Jown Owen Lowe's father-son dynamic, Unstable would be an above-average workplace comedy. Sitcom.
I would say true again.
Yeah. Okay. So you only missed the first one by The Hollywood Reporter. All right. So 3 out of 4. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So you know a lot about Rob Lowe, right?
I mean,
you know
for
him
the most
from
part.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Californication.
I never really watched a lot of California.
He played like a really extreme version of himself, hyper and a narcissist. You know.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be a foil almost to the Hank Moody character. And anyways, the West Wing. He was in that.
Yeah, I've seen The West Wing. I would still.
And then The Grinder. Which ran for like 2 seasons.
I never watched that. I remember the promos for it.
But what do you know about his son?
For his son, I don't know anything.
Okay, well then I have a little bit of an introduction. Basically, I want you to guess how he transitioned into acting. And you have 3 different choices here, and you got to tell me which ones you think are true. Ready? 2017's The Lowe Files.
The Lowe Files?
The Lowe Files.
Is that like a documentary, docuseries?
No, it's a TV show. It's like a paranormal series. Each episode followed Rob Lowe and his 2 sons as they investigated a different topic, such as Bigfoot sightings, alien encounters, and haunted houses. The show incorporated a mix of scientific analysis, eyewitness accounts, and personal experiences to explore each mystery.
Please tell me that's false.
We'll find out at the end. Number 2 is after Jown Owen Lowe graduated from Stanford with a degree in science technology, he announced that he wanted to write and act. That could be the reason why he went into this. Or he was writing on Lone Star with his dad, and that ultimately led him to come up with the idea to make a show together.
Well, I know that this show, it kind of focuses around a biotechnology company, so I'll go with the second one.
The second one is true.
Yeah.
But so are the other 2.
Wait, what?
Yes.
All 3 of them are
all
false?
3 of them are true.
True. Yeah, I mean, that's... So the Bigfoot sighting one is actually
The Lowe Files is a real show, even though his brother doesn't even work in acting anymore. Yeah, they're very close family, it seems like. He's worked with his dad, Jown Owen Lowe, again in Lone Star, and part of the reason that this show was even made was it was inspired by their back and forth on social media. Like, Rob Lowe likes to post a lot of selfies of him doing things, and his son likes to like knock him down a little peg, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
It's kind of like a little roast.
I think that in this show, Ellis, who again, that's Rob Lowe's character.
Ellis Dragon.
I think he is most like Chris Traeger from Parks and Recreation.
You're not alone to say
because
that.
He doesn't like ever want to accept anything other but happiness into his life, even though you can tell with the character when he's like kind of mad or sad. And I think that Rob Lowe does a great job with like his facial expressions, because you have to have some type of acting to be able to like pull that off. Always being happy, but being able to tell what the character is feeling underneath.
Who is Ellis Dragon, though, in the show?
So I have actually a little summary here. He's the leader of a downward spiraling biotechnology company. After the recent loss of his wife and his distant son relationship, Jackson, he seems to be on the edge of going through an emotional meltdown.
But is his company really failing? Because from what I heard, it sounds like it was a very successful company.
It's on the fritz. Basically, what they're doing is they're trying to find like environmentally safe ways to be able to bring technology into the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
carbon neutral?
Yeah, that's actually where the show, I thought, had its funniest on-running joke, because like just from everything that Ellis has created in this company. For example, he like created an enzyme that turns sugarcane into plastic-like biodegradable material. He also has like found a way to draw
plastic-like biodegradable, because plastic is notoriously, we don't know how to break it down, or we have like a couple bacteria that can break it down.
That's what I found funny about it. Yeah,
but this is something that'll just break down over time.
He's also found a way to draw carbon out of the atmosphere and use it to manufacture concrete.
This reminds me a little bit of extrapolations where in the future the main guy, who was evil though, the Game of Thrones dude,
Kit Harington.
Yes, Kit Harington. He had discovered a way to supply water to everybody.
Well, not only that, like they've also found a way to literally cut out climate change forever, because they created a plant.
He solved climate change.
Basically, they created a plant that,
and yet the company
has
is
so much oxygen that like if they plant 100,000 of these things, it will plant what is equal to 1 trillion trees. And they even created an invisibility cloak that you only see their eyes for. So literally, there's a part of the episode where his son Jackson walks in, and you just see Rob Lowe's eyes because he's wearing this invisibility cloak. That was probably the funniest that the show got. Yeah, I mean, it starts off though, I thought, with something that actually gave like a hint of Joker, and I had to like kind of put that back into my notes from an ending twist that happens but basically.
What do you mean by a hint of Joker?
So it starts off with him, he's watching Ellis, he's in his mansion, he's watching a video of his dog being saved from his iPad, and then he's like crying about it. There's a short dance scene that he does, and then he looks in the mirror.
TikTok dance?
Yeah,
Is he doing it for social media? Is what I'm
No,
asking.
He's doing it for himself. He's just dancing in his apartment.
He's just an eccentric guy.
Really quick, and then he's staring in the mirror, and he's basically saying to himself, "Not today. Today's going to be a good day," or something like that. And then he leaves for his job, and that's where I thought the hint of Joker came into play, because you could tell that he was trying to get all the sad and like anger that he had in his life kind of out of his system.
Gotcha. Like he was putting on his makeup. Basically, this takes place 2 months after the death of his wife, who he'd been married with for 30 years.
There are comparisons I feel like that you can make throughout this whole entire TV series, whether it be with the plot or the characters. For example, you bringing up that his wife Katie died after this car crash. He talks to Anna about it when he first gets into work. I felt like that was a lot like Afterlife. I think that's the Ricky Gervais show on Netflix as well. I also felt that there was characters that they wanted to make you feel like were different characters from other TV shows. For example, Malcolm. Malcolm is someone who is like an assistant for Ellis, or at least works at the company, who always wants his approval. At least that's what Anna says to him.
He's kind of like a replacement son. He's about the same age as the actual son.
Yeah, he was in the show. He's friends with his son Jackson, but he was like Larry from BMS, where it's like Larry
the backup
for that.
support.
Yeah, where he just always wants to make Ellis
the hype man
happy. Yeah. And so then Malcolm ends up having to fly to New York, because at this point Ellis, he's just on the verge of a mental breakdown. He's not coming into work. Every Tuesday he's taking off to work for like a landscape company. He's just kind of,
I don't want to rude the thing, but didn't he come to work naked, right?
Yeah. In fact, that's how Anna like walks in like at the very beginning of the episode.
That's the cause. That's the trigger that causes Malcolm to have to go and find the son and say, you got to reconnect with your dad.
Because
it reminds me of Lucky Hank. Because something similar, where the dad like had just retired and broke up with his wife, and then Lucky Hank, who he didn't have a great relationship, gets a call saying you really ought to talk to your dad. It also reminds me of the last show that we did, the Big Door Prize, right? Mm-hmm. Where someone dies, and that like is an over like they died before the show even took place, and that like takes over the entire narrative
Not
of
a
the
bad
show.
comparison. It also reminded me of the Apple TV series Shrinking, just kind of the same type of tone and everything, where it's like you have this character who's supposed to be so great, and Shrinking, it's a therapist.
Was there that much drama?
But I mean, well, no, it's not nearly as dramatic as Shrinking.
Or as serious,
fact,
yeah.
I felt like this was kind of like an NBC show, multicam show, at least for the beginning. You have instances of like Parks and Rec, The Office, The Good Place, kind of those types of
Workplace
TV
comedies,
shows.
yeah.
But so it ends up being that Jackson, he flies down to the company, and it's funny, I didn't know until you said it that they were actually father and son. In fact, I had actually down as one of my pros that Jackson looks so much like Rob Lowe. I was like, wow, they did a really good job with makeup.
You didn't realize this was a Lopez versus Lopez show?
I thought that they just somehow found a really good
look-alike,
yeah, for like what Rob Lowe is going to be. But Jackson, actually, one of the smart things that this show did was it kind of focused the first episode. You think it's going to really be about Ellis? It's really focused around Jackson, I felt like, and then you kind of get definitely some instances of Ellis and his character, but also kind of descriptions from other people like Ruby, like I said, Malcolm, really Anna, that explain who Ellis is overall.
And I feel like from what I've read that this show doesn't fall into the trap of like shit my dad says, or like where it's the millennial versus that, like there's still some back and forth between but the ageism factor isn't like a constant joke of, like this person is just out of it because they don't exist in this time period. They're not like hiddenly racist or anything.
I didn't even factor that in, but yeah, it doesn't do that. I like you kind of mentioned earlier, I think Lopez v. Lopez kind of did that same thing or whatever it was, but you like hear
they're still mocking each other, but they're kind of equally doing so, right?
Yeah, well, Ellis, he really wants his son Jackson to stay because Jackson's only supposed to be wherever they are. I actually didn't get where they were working for one night before he's going to fly back to New York.
Because he's a flutist.
Because he's a flutist.
Or flautist, or I don't need it's
that's actually a joke in the show. Ellis doesn't know how to actually like call what his son is.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm Ellis in this. That's not great. So overall, can you see the comparison to Better Off Ted and Santa Clarita Diet because it was brought by that executive producer?
I never really watched Santa Clarita Diet, and Better Off Ted was so long ago, but I would say it's more closely related to Better Off Ted. Mm-hmm. Kind of almost those shows that feel like they're supposed to have a laugh track but don't.
So there's no laugh track.
No, thank God.
Okay.
And also the episodes are short as well, and it ends with something that I found kind of interesting. So at the very end of the episode, there's like this emotional moment. It didn't really work that well. In fact, it felt a little bit like Blockbuster in that sense, where it's like Ellis is explaining to Jackson how he doesn't want his son to go back the day later because he misses his mom, Katie, and then like Jackson kind of shrugs that off at first, but then does karaoke at this bar. It was really kind of lame in that instance. But at the very end of the episode, the on-running like kind of mystery of this episode has been that the therapist that Ellis was given has just kind of gone missing, fell off the like planet of the earth. No one knows exactly where he is. And
isn't it Leslie like his therapist, or is this before? Who's playing the therapist?
We don't see the therapist.
You don't see the therapist? So, I was hoping you would.
Yeah, it felt like, and I'm not surprised you say that, because it felt like whoever is going to play the therapist in later episodes has like a bigger role.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Fred Armisen.
Fred Armisen, yeah, I'm not surprised.
He thrives in the kind of the minor character type. I feel like he'd be really funny.
Yeah, it's almost like he keeps on popping up in all of these different shows.
Especially if he's just like a weird dude.
But Jackson, so Jackson is kind of talking to Anna after he's done his flute performance at the bar. I think that he said that he was maybe going to stay longer than he was expecting to, and Anna tells Jackson that he really does have to stay because it turns out that the therapist, Ellis, has locked up in his basement.
Oh, okay.
And and for a couple
that's
of days.
Like that Steve Carell
because,
show.
Yeah, well, I'll get there in a sec, because apparently the therapist was threatening to send an unflattering report on Ellis, and then Ellis is like, oh, yep, time to feed him. He gets angry if I don't feed him on time. And I said, yeah, it's basically a funnier version of the show The Patient. And I don't know if that was just supposed to be a one-off joke at the very end of it, because obviously the show is going to expand into that, or if that what the show is actually leading to. It also made
an arrest.
Yeah, it also made the title of the show make more sense. Unstable.
It's the title of the episode too.
Yeah, I know. I saw that as well.
It's weird to see the title of the show be the title of the episode.
Well, sometimes they do that for like season finales. I know Daredevil was named like Daredevil at the very end. I don't know a lot of shows that do it for the pilot episode. Mm-hmm. That being said, I've kind of gone into my observations and pros about the show, I do think a lot of the jokes, however, fall flat. There's just a lot of TV shows do this. This isn't the only one to do it, but like they always have these weird like one-liners. For example, there's a joke about how Anna put an infrared sauna in Ellis's office, and then Ellis responds that he gets more clarity from his bone marrow being warm. And it's just like continually these jokes.
That's not funny?
I don't see how they're ever funny like that.
I mean,
like
if
every show does
funny.
it. Anyways,
so that's a con for you. Stupid jokes.
I also felt like a lot of the characters beyond Ellis and maybe Jackson were just one-trait characters, and it almost felt like the show was just trying to introduce them, so they didn't have to introduce them later on. For example, Anna is just the helpful assistant. There's a scientist named Ruby who is supposed to kind of be a love interest for Jackson.
I think Anna is too. I think, or someone else, maybe Luna. Like they're supposed to be. Wait, is Anna old? Too old to be?
Yeah, Anna.
Okay, so it's probably Luna and Ruby.
Yeah, so Luna is like kind of the nerdy scientist. They also made it seem like Jackson and her might have a thing later on in the show. Malcolm, like I said, is supposed to be the person kind of obsessed with making Ellis happy, even though we haven't seen that trait too much from him yet. And so it just felt like all these traits have been done in other TV shows, which I thought really brought the show down, because if they had good characters, I think this could actually
So maybe
work.
you'd agree with Collider's take. It says Unstable had the potential to be the streamer's next big hit, but instead it's just another cliche-riddled workplace comedy featuring all the tropes that have been done far better before.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I also felt like I don't know if the show has enough drama or dark enough material to really go with its kind of cool twist that they did with Ellis being this person who's keeping him the therapist.
Give it the benefit. Okay. Actually, I have a good question for that. So, what do you see as the show's potential worst case scenario and best case scenario?
Worst case scenario, I feel like would be if they made Malcolm the main character. I really didn't like his like character at all.
Oh,
in
really?
fact, I didn't.
Aaron Branch?
He was my least favorite character out of the whole entire show. I felt like I thought he didn't do a good job.
So
also,
if they concentrated more on the side characters, you would dislike it more. You're thinking?
Yeah.
All right. Best case scenario.
Best case scenario, it turns it around and makes this therapist thing. You said Fred Armisen's the therapist, so that gets me a little excited for the TV show. But that it really focuses on that and somehow makes it funny and goes darker. Because here's the thing: if the show was like almost kind of trying to trick you into thinking that was this NBC Parks and Rec tone type TV show, and then this twist at the very end of it is supposed to actually be how the show really is, where it's like kind of focusing on this incredibly unstable, as the title says, character. I feel like it could do some really funny stuff with that. And I feel like that
dark comedy.
And I wouldn't even I'd even probably come back to this pilot if I were to watch the rest of the series and maybe even give it higher points, because I understood that's where the show is going. At this point, it still feels like it's going to retain the same type of lame tone and jokes that it has. I
will say that like with Santa Clarita Diet, it did change kind of trajectories several times, and like it felt like the point of the show, it was always a comedy, but there were certainly it definitely did change.
If it does what Santa Clarita Diet did, then yeah, I will give the show massive props for that. But I'm not sure if it's willing to go that far.
All right. Well, critically, right now, it looks like it has pretty decent reviews, and but like it has a 6.6 on IMDb, and the Rotten Tomatoes score isn't set yet, but it's around a 70% right now. The overall point of the show just seems to be family, though. Like, so compared to, and because it stars two people, we already compared it to Lopez versus Lopez, but like Guy Fieri Grocery Games. How similar is it to that?
To Guy Fieri Grocery Games?
Yeah, father-son.
There's a father-son in Guy Fieri's Grocery Guy, and I guess knew Guy Fieri.
You don't know that his kid also is there and making okay, well, all right, that joke went past you. How about Fast and Furious? No?
If this show turned into more Fast and Furious, I would also give it.
So if it got goofier or if it got more serious, but if it stays right now where it is, then you don't think you're gonna.
I mean, I probably would give this show really a 5 out of 10. By the end, it reminded me a little bit of The Woman in the House Across the Street from The Girl in the Window, or Dead Like Me, or Dead to Me, whichever the Netflix show is, because of the like kind of unreliable or unlikable narrator.
Okay, I think to me, isn't that the one with where James Marsden's in it?
Yeah, and they made like 2 or 3 seasons of it.
I don't think there's a lot of jokes in that, though, are there? Well,
I don't know. I thought it was a comedy.
it is a comedy. It's just very different than the woman in the house across from the street of the murderer and the. I don't know. Yeah. So overall, you give it a 5 out of 10. How closely related is Dragon to, say, the Mythic Quest character that McElhenney plays, or like to a Tony Stark? Because it feels like the eccentric billionaire. Like the difference between him being like an Elon Musk character is that this guy's supposed to be inherently good, except for the kidnapping thing, right?
Is Dragon?
Isn't that his name? Is it Ellis Dragon?
That's the name of the company. They never said his last name in the show, I don't think.
I highly doubt. Really?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, that's his name. So my point is he like Tony Stark?
No, but he does have his picture on the cover of Time.
Okay. I mean, that's close enough. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.